Hi everyone, welcome to the community classroom. This is Dr. Tracey McCarthy, psychologist, attorney, and educator, and we're going to just quickly look at a couple of points related to the Papal Bull of 1493. This is not the full-blown analysis that we originally planned. However, this is just a look at a couple of pertinent issues related to this Papal Bull. One of the things that people need to make note of is that there was more than one papal bull, and there is some conflation going on related to the original papal bull related to Portugal, and then the subsequent papal bull which was related to Spain, and also the first papal bull was related to Africa and Asia primarily. There was a particular dictate that went along with that papal bull, but people need to actually read the papal bulls for themselves so that they understand exactly what is said. And then the subsequent papal bull was directed to other monarchs, and so it was related to Spain and then related to the Americas. And there were totally different dynamics going on with these papal bulls, and so people need to be very careful about conflating them and thinking that they are talking about the exact thing in both of the papal bulls. They're not talking about the same thing. They are doing some of the same things, but they're not talking about things the same way. And so people need to be make themselves abreast of what it actually says. In conflating these two papal bulls, individuals often get it confused related to what is meant by this term barbarian. And barbarian does not mean the same thing in both of those situations. And so in this case, when you're looking at the term barbarian, it basically meant in this particular time period someone who was foreign or from another country or culture, as you can see there. This idea of being savage or rude or uncivilized didn't come about until 1590s, and so this is after the actual papal bulls that we were talking about. And so you also see this notation, which is very important. There's this dynamic of seeing anyone who was considered non-Roman or non-Greek as a barbarian, and also specifically barbarians were considered those who were Berber, pagan, and Saracen. Ultimately, barbarian was about someone who was different from self, and so you have up here all that are not Greek, especially the Medes and the Persians, those who had no Roman or Greek accomplishments, those who were natives of the Barbary Coast, but much later on, this is after the Papal Bulls, again, that idea of being rude or wild from the 1610s. And then at one point, there was even this idea of a barbarian being anyone who was non-Italian. Now, for a quick overview of the second papal bull, it's important to remember that this comes from ecclesiastical law or church law. So this was an ecclesiastical patent. This didn't come from a monarch. This was in 1493. It came from Pope Alexander, and it was directed to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. So those two specifically, it wasn't applying to or directed to anyone else. The purpose, according to the papal bull, was the exaltation, the increase, and the spread everywhere of the Catholic faith and the Christian religion. There was, for some reason, a separation when they were talking about in this papal bull the Catholic faith and the Christian religion. So that's something that people might want to look into a little further. The purpose of it, the why of it, was for the health of souls of barbarous nations, and also to bring them to the Catholic faith. That's what is in writing. You can see when you're reading the papal bull, however, that there are some other things that are going on. And here you can see the non-translated original format here for the papal bull. And here you can see the title and introduction to the second papal bull from 1493 related to the Americas. Again, from Pope Alexander VI, and it is entitled Demarcation Bull Granting Spain Possession of Lands Discovered by Columbus. And so you can see this does not mention Saracens. It's not talking about Africa and Asia. It's specifically talking about the lands discovered by Columbus. And some of you would do well to look into this idea of discovery so that you get a handle on what discovery is all about. And you can brush up on that by looking at things related to property and intellectual property, that idea of discovering something, a discovery, an invention, when you create something. It's all under that same umbrella in terms of theory. And because of that, many people would, of course, argue that Columbus did not indeed discover anything. There are a number of discussions going on related to the people that were here prior to Columbus coming. And there are a number of artifacts that people are uncovering and sharing related to the culture of those people. One of the things that people might want to really delve into is what the papal bull is talking about in terms of the people who were quote unquote discovered. And so when you read the papal bull carefully, one of the things you will notice is that the people are described a certain way. And so the people that were discovered, they were identified as very many people. They were identified as living in peace. They were identified as going unclothed. They were identified as vegetarian. They were also identified, interestingly, as believing in the God, the creator in heaven, the one God creator in heaven. And so one of the things that is being noted here is that the papal bull is identifying that these individuals that they found would be people identified as people of the book. In other words, it appears that they believe that they located individuals who were of the quote-unquote Abrahamic faith, one of the Abrahamic faiths, if you want to put it that way. And because of this, they believed that it would be very easy for them to embrace the Catholic faith. And so there was already this perception of a connection going on. So there was not this understanding or labeling them as Saracens. They were not automatically labeled as heathen. They were automatically labeled as someone who had a common thread in terms of religious belief. And people are also encouraged to read the case related to the doctrine of discovery, not just discuss this idea of the doctrine of discovery, but really get into the meat of the case and understand the actual facts of the case, what the legal arguments were in the case, what the legal issues were in the case, and why the judges decided the way that they did in this case. And so it's very important for people to read this type of material for themselves. It's not enough to actually just listen to other people talk about the doctrine of discovery. So you need to really understand it for yourself. And here is some quick information related to understanding cases and reading cases. It's important when you read a legal case that you know what to look for and you pull out of that case the important components. And it's generally called what's known as a case brief. And so what you're looking for in any case is you want to pull out the facts and you want to separate those. You want to identify the questions, the legal questions that the court is answering, also known as the issues. You want to understand and pull out the rule of law. This is the law that applies to the specific facts in this case and the legal question. You also want to pull out very specifically the court's decision. This is known as the holding. You also want to pull out of the case the rationale, and this will be the court's legal reasoning for the decision. Hoping this gives you food for thought. Remember, knowledge is power. Take care and see you soon.